Alright everyone, welcome back. Obviously this is Rico's Aquariums. You might hear a couple dogs, don't mind it. We're going to get through this as easy as we can. I am at another reefer's house down here in Miami, so there's going to be obviously some questions I'm going to ask him, but first I'm going to go ahead and allow him to introduce himself, where you guys can see some of his content, if he has any forms of social media, what they are, and what the names of those social media pages, so you guys can go follow him as well. Along with that, after his introduction of that, we'll go ahead and talk about give us what inspired him to get into this hobby in the first place. So the floor is yours, my man.
Are you listening? Damn. Yeah.
My name's Javier. Instagram page is at bbs__reef. This is my aquarium, 400 gallon, 96 by 30 by 30. And I don't know.
And what inspired you to get into this hobby?
I've been in the hobby for 20 years. I was inspired by a good friend of mine who had a tank and got me started with a small 10 gallon. From a 10 gallon, we went up and up and up, and this is where we're at now.
All right. 20 years. So how many tanks have you had prior to this tank? What got you here?
Probably close to 15 of them.
Okay, what was your very first tank?
A 10 gallon that I started off with a saltwater tank. And from there we went to a 55, 75, 90. At sometimes there was multiple tanks in the house, same as there is now. But this is the main reef tank in the house.
So what are some of your plans, or what are your expectations? First off, how long has this aquarium been up and running now?
This aquarium's been up and running. It'll be 2 years in August.
2 years in August. Are you satisfied, or what's your expectations for this aquarium? What are you expecting for it to do, and do you plan on a upgrade in the future?
I mean, for this tank, I hope to fill in the areas, letting the colonies grow. I haven't really been adding too much lately, since I just like to let things grow. I'm not too much into fraggings. I'll frag when stuff gets in the way, but other than that, I like to fill it up with what's there now. Obviously, I'm not against grabbing a couple of new things here and there, but for the most part, as far as the SPS go, I just like to watch them grow and see how big I can get them to get.
Would you consider this more of a SPS dominant reef tank, or a predominant mixed reef?
I mean, I would say it's pretty mixed. You know, we have a good amount of torches over there, frog spawns, leathers, elegances, open brains, some A-cans. There probably is more SPS than there is anything else in the tank.
Yeah.
But I would say that it's a pretty balanced aquarium when it comes to SPS and LPS.
Who made this aquarium here? Or
This aquarium was made by Exotic Aquariums.
another Exotic Aquarium finest. What size is this total?
This tank is 400 gallon total. It's 96 inches by 30 inches by 30 inches.
Deep tank.
Yeah.
All right. So, with all that being said, let's get into, what is your favorite coral?
My favorite coral, I mean, as of lately, have been torches. I've gathered up quite a collection.
Yeah.
As of lately. You know, but I've always been a big fan of the pearl berries, you know, the red planet, you know, the old school acryls that you see them, but you don't see them as often anymore.
Right.
You know, that's what I love is the stuff I started with when I got into the whole SPS, the SPS upkeep.
So, what are some of your what is one of your favorite fish? What is, if you have a favorite fish, what is it that's in this tank currently, or what would be your ideal dream fish to have in this aquarium?
I mean, one of my favorite, probably my favorite fish in this tank is the gem. And I've always been a big fan of the gems. And before they were a little harder to come by, now they come by a little easier, but I am a big fan of him. Probably second to that would be the Achilles that's running around in here. You know, when it comes to wrasses, the Lineatus is probably one of my favorites, along with the leopards that I have in here. As far as adding more fish, I think at this point it'd be kind of tough. I've got 46, 47 fish, and I think it'll turn into a big fight if I was to try to add something else. Most of these fish have been in here, you know, over a year already without adding anything else. So I like to kind of leave it how it is, and if I come across something that's rare that I find very interesting, then maybe I'll try it. But as of now, I'm content with the way it is.
So I see you, as I was kind of filming the tank just for people to see the up close shots, because right now we're kind of a little washed out so we can do the interview. Your hogfish, what possessed you to get some of the two hogfish that you have in there?
Oh, I just love their colors. You know, the peppermint hog, you know, it's a great color. The dark red with the white stripes, and the candy hog is, I mean, that's just an amazing fish. You can be, you know, standing somewhere looking at the tank, and when he flies by, he catches your attention.
Oh yeah.
You know, and they're great fish. They help out with cleaning up the fish. Obviously, it's a little harder to have shrimp and stuff like that, which I don't have any anymore.
Yeah.
they all disappeared. But yeah, that's pretty much what got me was the colors on them, and the fact that they perform a purpose somewhat in the tank when it comes to helping other fish.
Yeah, yeah. So also, what problems have you had with this current tank, and how have you resolved those issues?
I mean, with this current tank, I've been pretty fortunate not to have too many problems. And I have had an issue where I've had, you know, an SPS here or there kind of start to RTM, but that's something that happens. So I've been fortunate. I run this system the same way I ran my system 20 years ago. I don't change anything.
Right.
I still use the same chemicals I used 20 years ago. I still do everything the same. I try to keep to a routine and not add different things or introduce different things into the tank.
So can you give us a rundown of what you've done then and now? What was those things?
I run right now. I dose C-Chem powder calcium, C-Chem powder alkalinity, Lugo solution, and strontium and molybdenum, I believe it is, and then I dose that once a week. That's the only dosing I do besides my automatic top off, which I run Cockwasser in. So every time it tops off, it shoots some Cockwasser in to try to maintain the levels.
Awesome. So you've been very fortunate, you said, with no catastrophic events, anything. Now you did transfer from another tank to this tank, correct?
Yes.
So what was that process that made you think maybe successful that you didn't end up having any process while
Well,
doing it?
when I did move the stuff over, I did have some death.
Oh, you did?
Yeah. For the simple fact that the rockscape needed to cycle. It wasn't so much corals as it was fish. I lost fish, I didn't lose corals. For the most part, because at some point during the cycle, the ammonia goes up through the roof and it harms the fish, and the fish didn't make it. I do have some that did make it, but a couple of them didn't. As far as the corals, everything survived the move.
So, and how long did it take that process for you to get this tank in place, get the rock work in, get the corals back in, the whole 9 yards? I mean,
this tank was delivered to me probably at 10 in the morning, and at 4 or 5 in the morning, the next day it was running. So upwards of almost 20 hours, 19 hours from start to finish. Obviously, the corals that were brought in here were not most of them were not colonies like this. These have all, for the most part, been grown from frags, with the exception of a couple that may have been, maybe, softball-sized colonies that I had in the other tank.
So with that being said, are there any changes you would make with your current setup right now?
Right now, I wouldn't. Right now, it's,
Any future plans for any equipment upgrades or anything like that?
as of right now, no. The only thing that I may ponder doing, but I probably won't, would be to look into some different lights, just to try something different. But I'm very happy with the setup I have now, and I don't think I have a need to change anything.
Right. So with that being said as well, can you give us a rundown starting from your lights to the pumps that you're currently using down to your filtration?
Yeah, of course. I'm running 4 Kessel AP700s, 4 Reef Bright XHO 48-inch with a controller. I'm also running 8 54-watt T5s. Then, as far as current in the tank, the current is handled by 2 Tunzi wave boxes and 4 Tunzi 6105s. The filter, I have a 6-foot sump, Royal Exclusive Supermarine 250 protein skimmer. The return pump is a Vortec an Ecotech Vortec L2. I do run an algae scrubber, and I run one of the Rain algae scrubbers. I do run a UV sterilizer, a 57 watt, and then the auto top off, which is 20 gallons.
Awesome. So, off the top of my head, I would like to know 5 things that you would give advice to somebody coming freshly into this hobby. Like what 5 pieces of advice that you've learned over the years that you think that a brand new person that's probably going to come across this video or just freshly into this hobby, what advice is 5 that you could give them to help them get on the right track to being successful?
I mean, the first one for me is don't chase numbers when it comes to levels. If everything in the tank is doing fine, continue your routine and leave it as it is. I don't even test water. If I ever have a need to test, it's because there's something really going wrong where I'm noticing the corals are not doing well and stuff like that. When it comes to starting a tank, I would be very patient with the stuff you put in it. Most people who start in this hobby don't start with a big tank. And as all of the hobbyists know, you run out of space real quick. You have to be kind of choosy in what you want. Be careful. Also, another thing is be careful with the fish you put in. You want things that get along and you're not having a constant battle in your tank. I'm a very firm believer that if you're going to do something, do it right. Take your time, spend the money to get good equipment. Spend the money to get yourself a good set of lights if you wanna grow corals and stuff like that. Don't do things in a rush. The more you rush things, the worse off you may be in the long end, and you may have to buy things more than once. And that wouldn't be an issue if you just took your time and saved and got it done. And the last one, which for me is the most important one, not most important, but it's how I run my tanks, to me, is simplicity. There's no automatic dosers in here. There's no, the automation, the only thing automated here are the lights. And that's because I have no other choice but to run them like that. But other than that, everything is still dosed by hand. Everything is done by me. I don't rely on equipment to do the things that I want done to the tank. It's unfortunate, with all, you hear these horror stories of dosers getting locked on, dumping God knows how much alkalinity, calcium, and whatever else you guys are putting in the tanks, and that's just something I don't ever want to happen to me. So I don't really run anything automated. I keep everything as simple as I possibly can, and that gives me results.
So also, when it comes to getting advice for a new person coming into this hobby, What do you think? I guess my question is, what would you suggest to these new people, or rookies, or however you want to look at it, when it comes to collecting advice, to take advice? Where should they be getting it from? Who should they be listening to? What do you think they should go just to get it? Or,
I mean,
good, bad, whatever.
Yeah, whatever it is. I mean, your first is always going to be your local fish store, because that's usually where you end up getting your stuff. But you can always, get on Reef to Reef. The people there are very helpful. Instagram, Facebook. I mean, whoever messages me about anything when it comes to my tank, I respond to everything. I help everybody as much as I can, because at the end of the day, I want everybody to have the same success. I mean, obviously what works for me may not work for you, but I can tell you what works for me, and then you can decide which way you want to go. Now with all the outlets we have, as far as social media, internet, looking up stuff on Google, looking it up on your phone, getting on Reef to Reef, getting on these forums, it's much different than when I started. When I started, there was nobody to call. It was kind of figure it out and get it done. And now you have so many platforms that, I mean, you can basically find information wherever you really want to.
Do you feel like those platforms or all this information is a good thing or a bad thing?
I mean, I don't agree with a lot of it, but everybody does things differently. Nobody does, no two tanks are run the same exact way. Everybody has their quirks, everybody has the stuff that they like to do. Some of it I find ridiculous, some of it, kind of makes sense, but I still don't do it. I kind of stick to the way that I've always done stuff, and I try to help people the way that I know how. I'm not gonna give somebody advice that I don't know anything about, and that happens a lot of times. Hey, let me give you advice, and at the end of the day, the person's never done it. He's only read about it, or she's only read about it, so you never know what the outcome is going to be. I try to stick to the stuff that I do. A lot of people consider the way that I run my tank, the reverse way to do it. I don't test water, I don't test anything.
You sound a lot like me when it came to my 300. I mean, I just look at it, they tell you when something's wrong. Is that the best way to do things? I mean, some people say no, because of all the new technology we do have. It's a lot easier now. There's a lot of things we didn't have back then versus now. But at the same time, a lot of that stuff made us who we are today. Yep. And we're still rocking and rolling versus some of the other ones with all the bells and whistles.
And they're still having problems.
Yeah, I agree with you. There's people that has the bells and whistles that don't have problems. But I guess what a person can take from this interview here is, you got to, at the end of the day, you have to do what works for you, and you can't knock it till you, I guess, you try it, because you never know. You don't know if it's going to work or not work for you. So you have to learn your system, pay attention to your tank, and ask questions. Ask questions. Do all the reading you can or researching, but ultimately you're going to have to try and see what's going to work or what's not going to work for your system.
Exactly. I mean, everybody's system is different.
Yeah.
One of the main things that I always tell when people come in and inquire about things, like they'll ask me, "Oh, what are your levels at?" I don't really know, and it doesn't really matter. So long as everything is looking the way that it's looking, and it continues to look this way, if something is off, you'll know it.
You'll definitely know it.
You'll definitely know it. The minute you get home, you'll know it, because things will not be open. Things will not be doing well. I've spoken to guys in the hobby who tell me, hey, I test my water and let's say my alkalinity comes back at 6. Now I try to raise it to 9 and everything does bad. I go, of course. If it's happy at 6, then maintain your 6. You don't need to go any higher. Plus, that you're probably putting them into shock from how fast you're raising the alkalinity. That's another problem.
That's a lot of the problems. I think a lot of people just go too fast.
Yeah. A lot of people are just, I got to get to 9. I got to get to 9, and that's not the way to do it. If everything is flourishing at 6, then keep it at 6. I mean, that's just the way I think of it, and that's what works for me. I mean,
no, great point. So, with that being said, is there any last words of wisdom in the 20 years that you can think of that you would like to, you know, say these followers or the new people that's going to come across this? Is there any sauce that you could think of? Secret sauce, I guess some people like to call it the secret sauce, or you know, tricks or anything to being successful.
I mean, like I told you before, I keep my tanks running very simple, you know, and that to me has always been the key. I get the results. You know, I don't feed corals. I don't do any of that stuff. I keep a lot of fish because I feed the fish excessively, and they feed the corals. You know, to me, the most important thing is to try to keep your tank, you know, simple but effective.
Yeah.
You know, you don't want to be going crazy every day having to do 300 things to the tank, because then you never get a chance to enjoy it. You know, I come home, I sit on my beanbag, and I sit here and I can stare at this for hours, and I don't have to do anything to it.
Right.
You know? I think that's the biggest advice I can give anybody in the hobby is you know, design your tank so that you can get the most enjoyment out of it while it's still working. You know, while you're still getting the results that you're getting.
Yeah, I think that's a great advice. So, with that being said, I just want to say thank you from myself, Rico's Aquarium, and saltwateraquarium.com for having us come to your home to visit your lovely aquarium. And yeah, I just want to say thanks. I would love to come back in probably a year or so and see this thing even grown in even more, because I'm pretty sure this stuff is already rocking and rolling really nicely, actually. So
Thank you.
So I just want to say thanks again. And with that, guys, being said, this is Rico, Rico's Aquariums. Till next time, peace.